so very much again. Thank you for making it the Info Exchange Cloud Forum under the theme, the Data Center Edition. We've heard all the speakers. We've really taken out all the topics that we thought was related to the data center. Speaking to David Allen before we had this particular conference, what he was saying is that data is almost like the blood, and the data center is the bloodline. And if you want your business to be viable, if you want it to be sustainable, you must protect the data center and all of the different touch points as much as possible. So we have, and certainly you would have gotten familiar with our speakers. Jose Luis was here earlier. We have Andrew, we have Gustavo, Nestor, Jason, and I have my co-host, well, actually my co-panelist over there. I met him this morning, quite a handsome, quite a fantastic gentleman, Undal Williams, CIO of Info Exchange. Welcome to the panel, gentlemen. I feel like...
That's for you.
I feel like we could have had maybe
here.
another XX chromosome up here, but you know, we work on it for next year. Mr. Williams, I come to you first because this topic was really important, and getting the right people here to exchange and to share insights and trends were very, very important. But many organizations are adopting this hybrid cloud strategy, and we've heard about it. What are the benefits and the considerations associated with implementing a hybrid or a multi-cloud infrastructure? Like, why should we even consider it?
Should I start with an easy question? let's dig in. For us in Jamaica, it's, you know, we're moving from a situation where we had physical servers, and we see customers still with that. So they're not even considering anything as yet. And then you have those that are virtualized, but are still operating in one location. Then you have those customers that are virtualized, but have branch offices. So they have ways of connecting those branch offices to reach that central data center. And then you have those customers now that have reached to the next level where they have a single location, and then they have what we call a disaster recovery location, just in case that main location goes out. And so when we talk about hybrid, we are speaking about how do you operate what we call on the ground as well as in the cloud. And for most customers, that they're just getting there. How do I actually move to the cloud? And you know, one of the topics that actually come up in the boardroom is, you know, cloud first. We're going to the cloud. Everybody, business, we are going to the cloud. And we are saying to them, what is your reality? Is your reality actually cloud first? Even though that may be the mantra in the first world, what is it for us here? And so therefore, hybrid cloud for us is really, at this stage, using cloud as a disaster recovery point, meaning that you're operating on premise and you need some way to secure your business off island. So you're actually setting up a disaster recovery location away from Jamaica. So that is one use case. And then another use case is where I am actually backing up my stuff onto a storage location that is away from us as well, and that's in the cloud. So those are two use cases that we see in terms of, for our case, in terms of a hybrid cloud management. Yes, there are some customers that are moving to the space where they can actually operate across not only on-premise, but in the cloud, and they can have use cases where it's beneficial. But once they reach to the extent where they start to see what cloud economics are like in terms of cost, in terms of getting to the cloud and actually accessing that data, then they say, well, how hybrid do I want to be?
Right. And you literally just took me into my question, which I was going to now come across to Gustavo and ask. Yes. So it's one thing to understand the considerations and the benefits,
Yes.
what our realities are, but what the best practices are, and how this hybrid environment can help the business to scale, to grow, to be protected.
Yes.
But we also know that cost is something that comes up at the board level, and it's budgeting, and it's always a place that people go, we can't afford it. So Gustavo, when we're speaking about cloud cost management, and it's a common concern for organizations, like what strategies or tools do you suggest for optimizing in terms of what they need, but also utilizing the cloud? Like what kind of cost do we need to consider?
All right. I think cost is a very important factor here. When we talk about cloud, again, this is a model, right? And I have the option to go private, public, or maybe hybrid, which is where everybody's going. Hybrid is definitely a trend. If you think about public cloud, I'm going to answer with a number. The number is 68% of global organizations going back on-prem from public. It's a big number. The number one reason is cost. Simple. It gets out of control easily. The meter is always running. You make a small change and the meter moves faster and the bill grows and grows. Nobody says, oh, my cloud is getting cheaper. Nobody sees that, right? No one has said that ever, I don't think. Hence the reason of optimizing not only performance availability, but optimizing cost. So to answer your question, we at Nutanix, for example, we have tools to identify, analyze your spend in any cloud, any public cloud, you name it. Google, Amazon, Azure, whatever you want. Private, of course, on Nutanix. If you want to see where you're spending and what parts of that spend are being wasted, like you have these resources you're paying for, but you are not using them, or these resources are over-provisioned on this cloud. And by the way, this resource would be cheaper if you move it to this other cloud. You want me to move it for you. We have all those analysis tools on-prem and in the public clouds available today.
Nice. So it is about finding those tools and figuring out, again, going back to reality, what you need and how you can divert the resources for the best outcome. Jose Luis, we've been speaking about the cloud, so we understand the benefits. We just heard about, the cost management, the things that you have to take into consideration. With the rise of edge computing, how do you see the relationship between the cloud and edge technologies evolving, and what implications could that possibly have for businesses?
Well, the thing is that the cloud is everywhere, and I agree with Gustavo on the, a lot of people went public and then they're coming back. Some of those are getting good results. Some of them are going every time more and more hybrid, kind of. And the thing is that the edge is everywhere. So for the user that is kind of using those services, they do not care where the data is, where the storage is being done, where the compute is being done. They just want to use the application, and they just want it to be available and to be working all the time. We have lost our patience. That doesn't exist anymore. It's a luxury that we don't have. People going to YouTube, people going to a service, and they just want it to be instant right there. I've had customers that they say, I don't care what you're gonna do, I just don't want the thing going and waiting for the buffer to fill up. And that is just one of those applications. When you go into the enterprise service, when you have one of the executive in a bank, in a branch, they do not care where the data is residing. They just need that instant working out. And when the hybrid cloud, it's evolving, and public, local, on-prem, all of the workflows, all of the automation, encryption, and all of those processes are evolving, the edge needs to evolve as well. Because the path in between where the people and the devices are and the cloud is not getting any shorter. It's getting more difficult. It's getting cranky. It's getting complex. And we need to somehow evolve with the cloud so we can deliver the customers the edge-to-cloud experience the way it should be. Right?
Absolutely. I'm going to come across to Andrew. Automation is a key aspect of hybrid/multi-cloud environments. How does your solution facilitate automation, orchestration, and providing that streamlined operation to reduce manual effort?
So that's really built into our core product. So when we look at kind of hybrid cloud strategies, being able to easily move your data where you need it, whichever cloud it's going to be, whether it's a private cloud, a public cloud, we build the tool to be able to take the data and convert it to whatever destination format you want to. So that's some of the automation we have built in. So let's say, for instance, you want to move your data between a VMware on-premise environment and either an Azure or cloud environment. What we're able to do is we're able to send that data, pre-convert it, have it be living in the cloud in the native format of that cloud without any compute resources spun up. And then whenever you actually want to fail over your data to that cloud, at that point in time, you start spending the compute resources to then attach the native volumes to actual virtual machine resources. And then we help with some of the automation of the IP address changes and things like that. So then you can start utilizing those resources as well.
Nice. So you're talking about built-in, very thoughtful, very considerate across the value chain. Jason, I'm coming across to you because we spoke about backup, we spoke about recovery, and that seemed to be a huge problem in terms of just a huge concern for businesses. No one wants to have to go through or to receive the phone call that we're down, anything is lost, and if we're going to recover, how quickly do we recover it? Do you have any success stories? Because I think the audience also appreciates the case studies and the examples. Do you have any success stories or use cases where, for example, your solution has significantly helped where it relates to backup or recovery?
So one use case I can refer to is where I started on stage earlier about Hurricane Maria. So that was extremely detrimental to the island of Puerto Rico. We have a customer there, they're in the steel and pipe business. They were out of business for 8 to 9 months. The data center was destroyed, they had massive flooding, so it was a complete rip and replace of the entire data center. So even if this was an environmental disaster, but imagine it being a ransomware disaster, it's the same key factors come into play. Is how do I have my data, where can I access it, and how quickly can I recover it? So with our example here, our customer was able to spin up eventually in the cloud. He did have a cloud copy. It did take some dynamics and processes to get to that point where he was able to recover. But now that he's back up and operational, today, with the anticipation of a storm, he looks at the NOAA charts and says, hey, there's a hurricane coming. So now he uses Haiku to back up his data center, but puts a cloud copy into Google. And with anticipation, 2 days before the storm comes, he fails his data center up into Google. Completely runs entirely out of Google. The storm passes, no damage, no issues. He simply brings the workload back down to on-prem. So these are some of the success stories that Haiku has come over to say, hey, this is how we've recovered some customers or helped them get around some of these concerns. Another success story is with ransomware. So it was a couple of months ago, the most recent one that we've been impacted, a customer was impacted with, leveraging Nutanix-based snapshots. The customer had literally 0 minutes of downtime. Realized there was an impact, numerous servers were down, they were not booting at all, immediately reverted back to snapshot-based recovery through Haiku. These snapshots are invisible to any end user or any attack vector. So therefore, we were able to recover these VMs within seconds and essentially be able to determine where the good data resides and have them up and running in less than 0 minutes. I mean, it was instantaneous. So really good use cases, in my opinion.
Yeah,
you guys can make your own determination on that. But.
No, absolutely. Congrats to not just you and your team, but also to businesses, especially if I found that if you are a small business, I mean, regardless of the size, really, you can't afford to go down. And as Jose Luis said, when you have users or consumers or customers who expect everything to be done right now and microwave, and you have so many more options in the market, the moment you go down, I just simply take my money elsewhere, and I don't think anyone can really afford for that to happen. Nestor, I'm going to come to you because we're speaking off the stage, and I was saying what I liked about your presentation is the fact that it wasn't just about big data, but smart data. And I think sometimes when we speak about data, we're very proud about the fact that we collate and we capture and we disseminate and we share and oh, it's so pretty. But we don't always make it smart in terms of taking, having actionable insights. So talk to me about monitoring and observability and how critical they are when it comes to managing, clouds. And what better steps can we take in terms of ensuring that the data that we're trying to capture can help us to make better actions
Yeah,
or
great.
decisions?
Yeah, thank you. Great point you bring up there, because today the data is what we're taking in large volumes. Before it was just a couple hundred users because there weren't that many smartphones out there. People were not going online. They were still calling their travel agency. They were still going in person to get things done. I think that most of us can get some of us get frustrated when we actually have to speak to somebody in person or on the phone, right? That happens to me quite often if I can't chat with anybody, or even if it's a bot for that data as well. But we do want to make sure we have smart data and actionable data is what we focus on. The AI Ops engine, Davis, is a deterministic AI Ops. It's not just collecting, but it's analyzing everything else in between and seeing how it can give you the answers that you need to make your business successful. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have, is not just analyzing the data, but making sure we're spinning back the proper answers for the business. And that's what we're big on, business outcomes, making sure that the users that are going to go there are going to be not going somewhere else. One of the conferences I went to, it says, don't get Ubered. And we asked him, what does that mean? And he's like, well, he did a survey, and the time it took to get a taxi X amount of years ago, if you would call and they would say, hey, 10 minutes for an airport, you would be fantastic. You were like, great.
Absolutely.
Now somebody tells you that Uber's going to be 10 minutes, you go, where's my Lyft app? Where's my other app? So because the instantaneity of that data is there, we're able to analyze that data. Hey, this customer had this experience. Nothing was wrong with the infrastructure. Nothing was wrong with the development. It's just little experiences that the customer was having. We're able to analyze that and give it back and said, you need to improve this in your app or this in your website. Just one example there, the cruise line we were talking about, they were trying to book everything. And once you booked, this is a $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 cruise, right? You want to do for a family, and they want to make sure the cabin is correct, everything is good. On the iframe of the actual website, the user just hit back, didn't change a thing, and they want to go back. But now they notice they had to fill out everything again, name, and so the user experience in Dynatrace detected that there was 30% of these users that were abandoning the cart. And when we went to go back and see what the user was doing, we noticed a trend. It was going back, they needed to refill everything, there was no infrastructure, there was no development, there was no code, it was just a user experience. So we went back to the dev team. The customer service rep said, hey, this is happening. They went to the dev team saw it, within a day they had it resolved, and all those customers that had a bad experience, they were able to call them back and recover over 6 figures in a few hours of potentially lost revenue. So all that data, if you use intelligently, analyzed correctly, can give proper business outcomes.
The action.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any question? Because I don't want it to feel or to even seem as if the conversation is only happening on the stage. We have all the experts here that are here to speak about whether it is edge, whether it is backup recovery, replication. Please. I have a gentleman here. Thank you so very much. And then we will alternate.
All right.
And you can let us know who you'd like to, or if you just want it to be an open question, go right ahead.
All right, good afternoon again. It's either for Nutanix or HiQ. Anyone of you guys can answer. We all know that on an environment, if you have a high threat or medium threat, that would be priority. So let's say I'm in an environment of Nutanix and I have a low threat. Most likely persons don't tag a low threat. So is there a way to tag a low threat to see if this low threat is doing something that it shouldn't be doing? Because most times if you have a SIEM solution or whatever, they don't really tag a low threat to say, is this low threat really doing something suspicious?
The start of that? All right, are we on?
If I understand correctly, you're saying, okay, maybe there's a low threat, this is not a real threat yet, but is there something to analyze it and determine how bad it could be?
Yeah, how is it behaving in the environment to say it's not doing something that would now trigger it to be a high threat, but it's still under the low category?
As at the user level, or at the VM level, or at the backup level? Because that could be looked at in multiple different ways.
Put it at a backup level.
Okay, so from my perspective, a low-level threat. So one, alerting, auditing, compliance. Your backups are happening. You get reports that tell you that the backups are happening. It's a simple, easy process. Webhooks and obviously emails can always be triggered. And there's also specific thresholds that you can choose the level of threat that you want to be notified on. So you can be notified across everything on the board or be very specific and granular. And then leveraging a webhook, you're not just going to get a blanket email. You can actually invoke a Microsoft Teams conversation or a Slack channel to be triggered to notify a group of individuals so that whoever may be on that team of support can actually look at the situation, see if it's a real assessment or a real attack vector, and then eliminate it. But specifically writing backup data, once the backups are captured and we keep snapshots and we're writing to an immutable storage target, from a backup perspective, there's really nothing much that should happen, right? We should be able to recover the data regardless if something in production or at the user space gets compromised. Now, I'll leave it to Gustavo to talk about the user level and the access from there.
So as you were talking, I was thinking any threat, any malware, terrible or not, has some patterns, right? It has to do something to actually work. And that, to me, translates into abnormal behaviors. Having a platform that provides you with machine learning, uses AI, and all the modern technologies will let you identify abnormal behaviors. To me, I used an example earlier, right? I said Mr. Allen came to work today, and instead of working on 10 PowerPoints and Excel files that he usually does, he deletes 500 files in 5 minutes. That's a totally abnormal behavior. Or maybe not deleted. Maybe he's opening and closing too fast. Some ransomware attacks nowadays, they just open files, get some data, but they don't do anything. They don't encrypt the files. I'm about to stand up now. I'm getting excited. So maybe that malware is just reading a bunch of data at a pace that is totally abnormal. That's when we can notify you of those behaviors and say, hey, here's an abnormal pattern. Please, what do you want us to do? And that's a Slack channel call, the Microsoft Teams message, with a WhatsApp, whatever you like. There's a conversation. You guys determine yes or no, stop it right now. And by the way, it is bad. Roll back to whatever this was an hour ago, problem solved.
Thank you. Go right ahead. And feel free to jump in. Even if a question is directed at a particular person, if you absolutely have something to add, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
And to put a little more sauce on that, when you do mechanisms like crowdsourcing or correlation, you can get more information about the threat. Because what is a threat? What mechanism is defining a threat as a threat? As a low, medium, high risk score. So when you have more information about other systems and you are doing crowdsourcing, you get to know if it is a false positive or vice versa, or if you have more information to classify that as a low threat. So using those mechanisms, crowdsourcing, like you get in feed for a lot of mechanisms or sources, and you get to know, hey, this is real, this is not, and then you get it done.
You have a nicer, bigger picture. I know I saw a gentleman. Oh, there you are. Oh, Ondel has one more thing. Give me 1 second.
There's just one more thing. What you're speaking about is normal tools look at, are you unknown, is it a known good or a known bad? But more modern tools actually look at behavior. And so therefore, in addition to Haiku, Zerto, Nutanix, and the built-in ransomware protection that they have, InfoExchange also has a slew of security tools that we use, Sentinel-1, Zscaler. On top of that, to make sure that you're not only dealing with the infrastructure side of stuff and the networking side, but you're also dealing with the security side of stuff. So therefore, whatever is happening, whether it's via from on-premise to cloud, in the cloud, or on the endpoint, whether it be mobile or desktop or laptop, you actually know what behaviors seem abnormal and be able to detect what is happening and stop that abnormal behavior from executing anything malicious against your servers and applications, and as well as your data.
Or escalating, certainly, even though he said it was a low threat. You never know when that could
And
absolutely.
that's the thing.
And you just,
Meaning
that's
that
a risk.
It actually starts out
That's a risk.
as something that seems good, but as soon as the behavior changes to something that is that is not good, then you actually stop it in its tracks.
Got you. Question.
Yes, this is really for the panel. Earlier I mentioned about cloud being a model, and when people ask about cloud, you ask them which location you want it. If business want to have a hybrid cloud for their model or a disaster recovery, would you suggest local ISP data center or off island? Because isn't local ISP data center considered cloud as well?
Good question.
And I know Ondo will love this one too. The first question to answer your question is, where are your users? Right? Because if 100% of my users are here in Jamaica, having an off-island DR may not be as effective as I want, right? So to me, I would say hybrid, and yes, off-island DR makes perfect sense because the whole island could be disconnected. We use Maria as an example. If you ask me, my preference would be something in island for sure, and a replica offsite. We have an Nutanix DR, whatever you wanted. One-click failover, the storm is coming, as Jason said, storm is coming. We have customers doing this in Trinidad and Jamaica and Barbados. They say, hurricane is coming. There's no disaster, it's just a threat, right? I see it coming. Why would I wait until it's real? Let's move it to today. Tonight, planned exercise, even better than unplanned. Let's move to Miami, wherever my DR is. Let's run from there for a few days. Storm is gone, move it back. So to me, it makes sense to be off island. But every case is different. In some cases, people believe they want to have two local data centers opposite sides of the island, if it makes sense. If you ask me, I would say off island, absolutely yes.
Great answer. Any more questions? I have a question. I like it.
Thank you. Afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
I think my question is more geared towards you, Jose Luis, I think. And I wanted to catch you earlier while Terry had the package there to trick us. I hope the package is still there somewhere. But my question specifically revolves around wireless management and wireless infrastructure. The infrastructure that I currently have isn't Aruba, but I heard some things today which could very well cause that to change. My real question, though, is management, wireless controllers. I have wireless controllers on site. Recently, one of them failed, and I got a little anxious because, it's wireless. Your wireless services basically always have to be available to your customers. So I had to do a lot of work to ensure that that secondary controller was back online. As far as Aruba is concerned, the management of the infrastructure and the whole business of the cloud, if something fails, what is the management structure like? Are the controllers in the cloud? Do I have an on-premise controller or controllers because I have a primary, secondary setup? Is that what you recommend, or is it that everything is in the cloud, so if something goes wrong, I really don't have to worry as far as the controllers are concerned?
Well, we don't use controllers anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the beginning. That was the beginning of enterprise Wi-Fi 20 years ago, and it was a model where, for delivering enterprise services, we begin working with the traffic from the client needs to get into the access point, drive all the way using tunnels to the controller, switched, routed,
Yes.
encrypted,
Yes.
cleared in the controller, and then back and forth, right? So that model at that moment worked, but many years ago, the customers and the industry started requiring more because of the same situation that you're describing right now.
Yes.
So it's not like we're not using the controllers for real not anymore. The thing is that right now, the environment is so hybrid that it depends on which is the application, which is the user, which is the client. So in this case, right now, the platform that I have uses something that is called Aruba OS 10 that is full hybrid. So I can use a controller. By the way, we call them gateways now. because they are not controlling the access points anymore. They are providing a gateway to an end. So I can say if the user traffic is guests from a hotel to access the internet, you don't need a gateway for that. Just send all of the traffic from the client to the access points, switching to the internet, and that's it. We don't need any controllers for that. But if the traffic in the other way, it is employees' traffic, something that needs to be secure, something that needs to be encrypted, tunneled back to the headquarters, etc., then I will know, and I will say, okay, employee traffic is going to circulate in between the client, the access point, back to me, the gateway / controller, and then I'm going to do something secure with it. And then I will know what is coming. But at the same time, we can avoid the use of gateways and controllers and use only access points locally, managed by the cloud. If they lose the access to the cloud, let's say that there is a hurricane or something like that, the access points are going to stay working the same as they were. You can even have local management on the access points, right? So you can establish one controller in here, one gateway, as we call them now, and the gateway can establish and manage all of the traffic that is for employees only, all of the traffic that is for the users is going to go through the internet, and I can have a gateway somewhere else. And I can even have a virtual gateway that is not a piece of hardware. So that virtual gateway is going to reside in one of the instances of the hybrid cloud.
Okay.
And the same hardware that we use for the access point is the same hardware that we're going to use for every one of the use cases. You can grab one of the access points out of the box, and it will work as a standalone AP. You won't need any controller / gateway out of the box. You will have the gateway, the interface to manage it right there. You can add another one and have a cluster, add another one and have a cluster. And you can manage a cluster up to 128 devices with no controller in the same gateway, in the same network, sorry. But if you want to grow up and get more services, you can add gateways or clouds. So we are trying to adapt to your workflow. So that is basically the final answer. We don't even worry about what is going to happen with the controllers anymore because we don't really necessarily use them or need them. But yeah, it can be local, on-prem, it can be virtual, it can be on the cloud. So the access points are going to adapt to whatever you need.
Okay, so the main point is that the access points themselves, essentially they become controllers.
Yes.
And they're able to stand
There you
alone.
are.
So the point of failure where you normally worry about the controllers, with that implementation, you no longer need to worry about it.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to put on the bag for you.
All right, nice.
I think I have one more bag courtesy of HP Aruba Network, and I think you deserve it because you asked a question and then you made sure you got it.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much for that. Andrew, I'm going to come to you. You spoke about Zerto and how the system, how it is a solution, especially when it comes to the ransomware. Have you seen any new trends or any new practices by bad actors that persons in the room should be aware of? Because I know there's a period of time when we see a particular kind of ransomware, a particular kind of phishing, and everyone uses it. Have you seen any new ones or maybe more sophisticated things that you think maybe persons in the room should be like, oh wow, that's interesting?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think you're going to see a whole lot more 0 days. And whenever we're talking about 0 days, we're talking about variants that are new, because right now the ransomware is a whole industry, right? It's 2031, it's going to be a $265 billion industry, right? Just ransomware alone. So, I mean, there's dedicated organizations that are building out very robust tools, and really to create a 0 day, they can take an initial variant, slightly modify the code, and now there's a new variant that can bypass some of your perimeter detections, can bypass some of the signatures that are in databases. So being able to capture as many data points as possible to determine if an event is happening is going to be extremely important. So behavioral analysis, understanding kind of what normal is for you, and then being able to take as many data points as you can, funnel those into a SIM or a log aggregator, taking data from us, taking data from the compute, taking data from backup, is as much as you can to really make sense of what's going on to help mitigate those zero-day threats, and even data from the network, right? So I think those are going to be some of the big things to look at. Implementing a bunch of data sources, being able to aggregate that data, be able to make more sense of what's going on to help mitigate some of those threats that are coming.
Thank you for that. Nestor, oh, you wanted to answer? Okay, go ahead.
One more thing to that, 'cause we were talking about how Zerto and Dynatrace, we both analyze data. How can we take that in? One of the advantages that we can take from the data analyzed by Zerto, on top of the application security module that we have for runtime only, is prioritize. There was a lot of times at Citrix that security team would come in the morning and say, 300 servers, critical vulnerabilities. Stop what you're doing, take care of this. Team, go out and take care of this. They would come back and say, hey, boss, 50 of them are not even on the network. They've been decommissioned 2 weeks ago. Why are they still showing up? These other 50 are dev in QA. How can they be critical if they're not being exposed to the internet? And the other 100 of those that are in production, only 20 of them are actually running that vulnerability. So we could have taken care of this tomorrow and just taken care of these 20. That's the data we can extract. Now we got smart data. Now we got 3 team members that have spent the entire day working on this when they could have focused their energy on just what they had and analyzing all that data, whether it's Edge, whether it's Certo, whether it's anything, and prioritize that because Dynatrace is already embedded in that end-to-end. And it can say, hey, this is critical, but this has access to a database with all your emails, which is not great. But then this vulnerability, which is less of a threat, is now having access to your credit card database and your customers and all that personal information. You want to attack that and remediate that first because we're ingrained in your business, not just the IT part of it. So that's a great thing too.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Gustavo.
I would like to add, obviously Nestor and Andrew know more about this than me, but just want to add something. This goes back to our previous conversation around doing things the old way versus the new world, right? If we, IT professionals, let's leave compute and storage and all aside, are also doing, you said, observe, do not monitor, right? If I'm using the old tools to monitor, if I am just meeting a requirement from my auditor to have a SIEM tool to collect a bunch of logs and I know it's just growing, it's doing nothing. Nobody knows what that SIEM tool is doing, but I'm aggregating all those logs somewhere just to check a box. I'm sorry, I am not doing my job. Today, we need modern technologies, we need observability tools, we need platforms that actually understand all that data and tell me something valuable to identify a real threat. Otherwise, none of us are going to be ready for that zero-day attack that you just mentioned. So, again, move on. It's time to change.
Absolutely. Undel, I'm going to come to you, Jason. Undel, I'm going to come to you because you are the CIO at Info Exchange, and you guys have gotten it forever. Like 27 years, you guys have always been the ones saying, hey, the internet is here. Hey, we need to change.
Yes.
You know, this is happening. Come, let us help you. Come, let us guide you. So you guys have gotten it. Considering that you probably know how difficult it is for IT in the room to champion or advocate for IT and things like observability and monitoring and all of these things becoming a huge part of a business's strategy. From where you sit, what advice do you have for persons in the room who now have the task of going back to their companies and saying, these are the things we learned. We are not doing the things in the old. We need to now do it now. We adopt, we adjust, or we die. What are some of the things that they need? They need to say to get their CFO, their CEO, their MD to say, you know what? We this is now our new priority. No pressure, no pressure.
Boy, I tell you, it's
No pressure.
a good question, and I'm going to answer it in this way. I think, first of all, we have seen where IT themselves is the first problem to overcome. And
Wow.
I don't want them to stone me off the stage.
I was not expecting that answer, guys.
But really and truly.
Wow.
Well,
Wow, and
no,
why?
No.
Let's get context.
Let's get some context. You're born into a world where you have become an expert in that which you have, gone to university, gone to training for, and you're now 10 years, 20 years into it, and then someone comes and say, here what? All that you're doing, really and truly, may not be the best way to do it today. And even though it may be the best thing for you, it's not necessarily the best thing for the business. And it becomes, it kind of divides the person, because am I going to change and adapt? Or am I going to stick with what I've known for all these years and protect what I know so that I can preserve myself? And that's a hard choice. And I mean, we would not say it's an easy choice. But as the world changes, so do you. And that is why we're having this forum today, because a lot of our customers today, Jose is talking about SD-WAN, one of the largest companies across the Caribbean, and they operate in the US as well. We have built one of the largest SD-WAN networks for them back in 2017. And we hear companies talking about SD-WAN as something new today. Nutanix. We brought Nutanix here back 2018. And then we're just talking about HCI. So some of the benefits that you can actually utilize within your company at a very early stage to give them that advantage. Some of the reasons why IT sticks to the known is because that's what they're comfortable with. And we always say, in order to advance, you kind of have to come out of your comfort zone and really look to what is it that is going to make this company better? What is it that is going to make my team better? Yes, it's going to require some changes, but how is it that we're going to make sure that we first believe that this change needs to happen so that we can then convince those in the C-suite that this is the way to go? Because if you go in as a non-believer, then it is going to be very difficult for you to convince them that that is the way. But on the other hand, you have the C-suite that believes that if the life of an IT person is not difficult, then we don't need them. And that also needs to change. IT is here to actually not only innovate, but to drive your business to the next level. And if you believe that IT is not necessary, ask them to go home. Then you will realize that they are absolutely necessary, even if things are running fine today. And when those two things meet...
I heard somebody say, mm-hmm. And I'm so...
when those two things meet, I think that the C-suite and those that are in IT will have some common ground on which to talk about what are the things that we need to do together to advance our business. What are the things that we need to do? Because, as David said, all businesses are
data.
information technology
businesses.
and data businesses, no matter what you do. So how do you work together to make things happen and to make things better?
I appreciate your very honest answer. I know, Jason, you had put up your hand when I called on Undel. It was something that you wanted to add.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I'll give away my last $100 gift card if anyone can tell me what the going rate for a simple ransomware attack is on the dark web, how much it costs.
In US, pounds?
US. $250.
What is that?
$250. So that could be an Henri employee, an Henri customer. Anyone can literally sign up and pay $250 to launch some form of a ransomware attack on your network. Sorry.
You give him some ideas? I mean, no, absolutely not. You're not getting any ideas, I promise you guys. I have a question. I'm so sorry if you are waiting long, and then next time I'm going to come back to you. I know we're running out of time, but let's get that question.
All right.
Or comment.
My question is to everyone, but it's actually coming back from your question that you asked and Ondel's answer. All right. And Ondel, I know what you're going to say, but I'm coming for you. All right. This is me now, I'm asking. All right, so you're saying we are the biggest challenge in the room because we have learned. We went to school for 4 years, 3 years, and this is how we were taught. It's on-prem, in-house, and Nowadays, everything is now out there, everything has changed, and everybody's telling us this is a new way to do this. But my reality is, aside from that, even if I could get myself to that mind change, and I'm there, my reality is I have a budget. Now, when I have a budget, I am limited by that budget. Even if my CFO trusts me and would buy me anything I say like that, I have a budget. Now, my question to you is, out of all of you out there, and I need all of you, and every business in here will need all of you, which one of you do I start first? Because it's a ladder. Which one of you would be the first rung on my ladder to get to where that space where I'm all woke in IT? Which one of you is first?
Oh, no, you didn't. I love it.
So let me start. I mean,
And anybody else who wants to jump in
yeah,
after on
who
there,
else
sure.
wants to start?
Thank
So-
you for your question.
that's where Info Exchange comes in. And, that is where you really need someone who is on your side. And when you say on your side, yeah, I mean, we're in business to make money, no doubt about that. But at the same time, we have been in business for 27 years because our customers believe that we have their best interests at heart. I mean, most of our customers have been with us for more than 10 years, meaning that we have customers that have been with us since 2000, meaning that they're 20 plus years with us, and they have moved with us as we have introduced new things, and we have said to them, here what? You used to do it this way, but you're now at a stage where we think you're ready to go to the next stage. So wherever you are today, we will actually look at that and to say, at this stage in your business path, this is where you should start. And as you grow, we'll be here to give you advice. And most of the times people think that, technology professionals are in business to just give advice only to the products that they resell. But really and truly, we are here to give you advice for
The
even
best.
products that we don't resell. And that is very important. Because what we want is to ensure that as a business, somewhere along the line, you remember the name Info Exchange, and that even if we could not help you with what we can sell you, we have helped you with the advice that we have given to you. And I think that's the best way to go about it, and that's the best way to have a business that goes on for decades and decades and decades.
Great answer. So what I'm going to do, since my time is up, I'm going to actually allow each person, if they can, absolutely. I don't know if it is necessarily to her question, but I'd give each person maybe a minute and a half to say your final say.
Okay, my final comment is going to be related to her answer, which was like amazing, and I know that feeling from the field, and I want to tell you something. We've seen that you're not the only one suffering the same situation. The IT budget is not unlimited for anybody. For anybody. It's always restricted, and it's not growing, it's decreasing. But you know what? You know why that is happening? Because your entity, it's looking at your unit as an expense. They don't see you as an investment. So, thank you. When you go through this journey that we are trying to go together with you, you're going to automate all of the firefighting and all the stuff with the AI and all the stuff, and then you will sit in the board of directors table and say, we're doing this way today. How are we going to be in 3 years? We, the IT department, we are going to be a business enabler for you. So bring me the situation, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to enable some new streaming revenues for you. And that is when they are going to say, you know what, tell me how much. It's not a budget thing, it's an investment thing. And that is when you are going to change the scenario and flip it back. Okay?
I like that. I actually like that a lot. Andrew.
Yeah, just kind of building off of that, that's a great point. I think transforming the IT is from a cost center to a profit center, right? And showing kind of the executives that you are now profitable to the business. And I think that the lights really come on for them, unfortunately, after you experience some sort of detrimental event, right? And unfortunately, in most cases, that's what drives the change. I wish it didn't have to be like that, but in some cases, you just simply can't break through to some of those audiences. But when you start going to your executives and you're saying, hey, I can implement these solutions, and if we're ever faced with these challenges, these challenges will cost the business, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars if we have an outage, if we have downtime, if we have unavailability, if we're not able to serve our customers, right? And by you implementing some of these modern solutions in place, you can avoid those situations, and now you're helping the organization be more profitable and avoid some of those detrimental situations. So I think articulating the value and the benefit of modernizing sooner so you don't have to be in the seat of one of those horrible situations.
Well said. Gustavo.
All right, so first, just to repeat a little bit of what Andel said, do not talk to any of us first, right? That's the honest answer. You need that ally that represents us all, by the way, and they will be your best partner to understand and draw that journey for you. So please create a journey, identify pain points, top 5, and find the best way with any of us or not to address each one of those. Definitely, by all means, yes. I'm going to take that part of the budget. I'm going to answer that with a personal story. Before I joined Nutanix, I was a customer of Nutanix. Some of you here know that story. Back in 2013, I was responsible for the 3 data centers that I mentioned earlier. And I was given a budget, like you said. And they said, Gustavo, this is your money to buy more toys, right? That's all you have. The money was specifically dedicated to buy more old legacy 3-tier SAN toys. When at that moment, somebody said, hey, Gustavo, you need to see this thing called Nutanix. I'm like, what in the world is this thing? Nutanix. And then I heard what it was about, and I said, am I going to be able to really get rid of my SAN and this? And they said, yeah. And I saw it. Took that money, I said, I went back to the office of that vice president, and I said, this is what I'm going to do with your money. And he said, do not buy that thing. Those were his words. Do not buy that thing. I don't even know what it is. You are allowed to buy this. So I had to go back to the point. I had to build a case, translate it to dollars, and I said, if I turn your company from here to here, and I translated those values into numbers, it's important to give it a number. If I take your RPOs to this, your rack space, your power savings, so into this, would you be okay with that investment? And he said, is that a reality? Do it. It's your job. Do it. What happened 10 years later is 3 data centers reduced to whatever size it is now, small, big savings. If any of us here cannot prove the savings, we shouldn't be talking to you. Any solution must provide what makes sense financially. We should be able to give you a TCO savings, not based on what we say on a PowerPoint. Let's look at a real numbers, and that's what InfoExchange can do for you as well. So, of course, yes, savings are important. We understand the budgets, but it must make sense to the C-level, and that's why we give it numbers.
Build a case. All right, thank you. Nestor, then Jason, and Ondel, if you have anything else to say. Go.
Yeah, so to the comment there, IT will always be viewed as an expense. We tried, both at Citrix and the previous cryptocurrency startup that I was at, making IT and ROI or things like that. But I learned something in the presentation I put is 80% culture. And how can IT not be viewed as that is finding out the pain points of the business. Once we started finding out these 50+ applications that we're supporting, what is their revenue stream? When this goes down, what is impacted? For some, it was, well, when this application goes down for master data management, we have a team in Bangalore and a team in Virginia that are spinning around, and there's 20 employees in each location that can't do anything. So we're paying them for 6 hours because this system is down. I'm like, okay, that's your pain point. I know what that is. What's your pain point? Well, when this transacts, our partners cannot buy our software. how much is that per day? How much is that per hour? So I know that breakdown. And once you start realizing that breakdown, you're going to start letting them know, I can reduce the amount of downtime and I can increase that shopping cart experience. I can make this experience better. If you're down for an hour or two, how much does that invest? We get a lot of our customers that say, oh, I don't have the budget for this. But then they start realizing, again to Andrew's point, when an issue happens, when you were down during Black Friday or sale, well, now let's get Don and Trace in here. Oh, we were able to save $100K in 3 hours. Well, we had only told you to invest 10. So how's that outcome for you? Once you start figuring out how they make money and what pain points they have, the business outcomes, that's when you can start showing your value, because you're going to start saying, I didn't just save you money, I'm making you money. And that's going to be a bigger value for that.
That's a big difference.
Don and Trace has helped many organizations do that, as many here can help their customers as well.
Thank you for that, Nestor. Jason.
Thank you. I guess what I could say is everything Gustavo said, yes, but also, you know, I agree with you. The budgets are always getting smaller. And what's funny and what's bad at the same time is when a catastrophic event occurs, the purse strings suddenly seem to open. So I'm not saying wait for something bad to happen. Please.
Big facts.
Please.
Big
Please.
facts.
Leverage info exchange. Leverage these guys. They have the tool sets. They could do the assessments. They could come to us, the experts in this industry. And I can speak for a majority of us. We all started in IT, right? Then we've moved into different roles and progressed up the chain to where I have the belief that my product, I know I can save money. I know I can recover your data. And I've done this so many years that I've seen all of the other products in action. And I know where there's certain nuances that I can do better than other products. And let us get you to that point so that we can help you save some funding and get you the right solution so that you sleep peaceful at night.
Lovely, lovely. Big facts. That's all I'm going to say. Big fact. Purse strings, poof. Millions. Ondel, I will give you the final word.
So it seems that from all the answers so far, one of the best advice is to orchestrate your own disaster. That way the budgets just release. Yeah, you know, you get 3 times the money that you ask for, and everything gets fixed. But on a more serious note, it's a very difficult one. It has always been, and but we have found ways in which to assist you in speaking to the C-suite about what is the value that you create. And you know, if you can't tell a story by yourself, invite us to help you to tell that story. We don't mind. Come in, have a chat with your C-suite. You know, what is good is that we have a lot of experience across many different industries. And I think that's what we like about our business, is that we learn so many different industries. So therefore, we can talk about different examples. We can talk about what we have done for other customers. And with that, you know, a lot of the C-suite, I like to know that it has been done before. They're not the first. And they also like to know that, you know, what were the results. And they also like to know that, you know, that there is some amount of guarantee that you can provide. And usually we can let them know that all of the above is possible.
Nice.
So if you invite us along with you to speak with them, it is something that can happen. And as the rest of the team actually said, is that you have to prove that you're not a cost center. And you can do that in so many ways.
Nice.
And one of the biggest ways is just to show up every day and to perform in such a way that they notice. They notice your impact, they notice your presence. And the recommendations that you make over time, make them count. So make wise decisions.
Yeah.
Too many of us end up with what we call technology debt. Something that we bought, and then we said, well, you know, we have to live with this for the next 5 years because we bought this thing with 5 years support. And if I go back to management and tell them that I made a mistake, then I'm up the creek. No. Make smart decisions, wise decisions about your technology. Take the time to research. Take the time to make sure that at the end of the day, you're putting something together that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we can help.
All right.